Hello everyone, I hope you're going well. Today I will actually teach you how to attack a chess. So it is actually a very new, cool series that I just started, and I have more than 50 examples and all the attacking themes that you actually need in order to outplay all your opponents in chess. So before the video starts, if you are looking for a very good chess coach for a very affordable price, all the links are of course in the description. So in that position, the king is actually very weak. There is no more pawn on g7, which means that the king might actually get some troubles on the g file. But also, since there is no more pawn on g7, somehow all these squares started to be very weak. And even though the g6 square and the e6 square are, still controlled by the knight, the queen, and the pawns, the fact that any of black's pieces can actually do anything on the king side is giving us a very strong advantage. So I will show you the first move, and then I will explain you what is going on. The first move is knight f5. I'm sorry, queen g4, but knight f5. And basically, the idea of knight f5 is that you will prepare moves like queen g4 check to attack and eventually bring the rook on the g file. Yeah, that's funny that I said knight f5, but somehow queen g4 was the first move. Yeah, so knight f5 is the first move. So knight f5, that is pretty simple. If you do anything, queen g4 and mate, simple. So you basically have to go for a move like bishop f8. Now, if you play something like queen g4, it's not checkmate anymore because the bishop on f8 is guarding g7 square. But that is why we can, instead of playing, queen g4, we can actually play the move rook g3 check, and we can still bring the rook into the game. The king will have to go on g8, and now we have what we call a numerical advantage. We have more pieces on the king side, for the attack than white actually has for the defense. So we could actually go for a move like bishop h6 or queen h5, and then we will actually get a very simple position because we will be threatening things on the h file because we have a very nice connection with the queen and the rook on the h file. For example, we will go rook h3 and mate, and anytime the pawn h6, the pawn h7 goes to h6, we can then go bishop h6, and the king is just way too much open. So that is a very good example on when the knight is actually very strong on the f file. Now, if you start with queen g4 check and then you go, for example, knight f5, it's still okay, but rook g8 is impossible. But if you go now rook g8, eventually we can think, yeah, there is probably knight e7 doing a fork, but then after rook takes queen, we will take the queen, black takes the knight back, and now probably we have an advantage because we have a better pawn structure and black has a completely ruined pawn structure, but it's very difficult to actually do anything. It's very difficult to create a pass pawn on the queen side. It's also extremely difficult to create a pass pawn on the king side, and because all the pawns are on dark squares, this bishop won't be able to do anything on this young diagonal. And eventually, one day, the knight will either jump on h6 or on e6 and d4, and the troubles will actually start to arrive. So that is why starting with knight f5 is better. Knight e6 is a better way to defend against the queen g4, queen g7 checkmate, because if you go bishop f8, then actually, if you go bishop f8, then actually it's very difficult then for black to bring more defenders because the bishop is somehow locking the defense of the rook on the g file. And we just saw that if we start with queen g4, then the rook will be a very strong defender on the g file. Yeah, so that's the main reason. So that is why knight f5 is the first move. Now, once the king goes away, if you go knight e6, it's also playable, but then queen h5, and we will start the same attack than we just saw with the rook going on the h file and then going for the deadly checkmate. And anytime the knight goes to h5, we can just take it. And then, for example, if knight g5, we could actually also start with a move like h4. But to keep it simple, we have takes, and queen g6, some forks, and I think it's not the most accurate win, but I like this win. It's checkmate, and also I'm winning the rook if needed, so it's a pretty okay type of position. And if you go queen g6, I wouldn't be surprised if I had something completely winning in that position. Probably queen h4, attacking the queen. The queen can't stay to the defense of the pawn. If the queen goes, for example, on f5, then there is queen h6, and I'm winning the rook. And probably there is something better, but that's all I can see for the moment. So probably queen e2 is more accurate. But okay, it's not the question now. So the fact that this pawn structure is so wide open is deadly. So knight e6 and then rook h3, and we will just go for a deadly checkmate. And yeah, that is just over. So that is why, let's say knight f5, rook h3, we are just bringing more pieces. It doesn't matter if we start with queen h5 or rook h3, everything is pretty much winning. We just have a superiority on the king side, and then of course there is also a final blow which I added. I forgot that I added this nice puzzle, but now we can just take on h7, go queen h5, and it's just checkmate, everything is perfectly controlled. So hopefully you enjoyed a small example. If you are looking for a very good chess coach, all the links are of course in the description. Purchase my books on how to prepare for a chess tournament, how to win with the London system, but also how to fight against the London system, and some other things related to the London system. Hopefully see you in the future. Subscribe. Take care.